Ladies and gentlemen, you are locked and loaded and live to the Keep the Change podcast, a brand new setup, and the boys are out on the track taking it for a test drive. Mikey, good to see you as always, mate. This ain't no Lambo, but the studio's looking pretty slick and fast.
It's actually hard for me to stop looking around because it's like yours, you know?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, eh?
Yeah. I keep looking at all the cameras to make sure they're recording because I've never had that responsibility before.
Yeah. So for context, for those people who may be tuning in for the first time or who don't really understand how it works, basically we have been hiring a studio. So you go to the studio and you just walk in and it is dressed as a Keep the Change studio and you record and then basically we leave. And it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's great. And then that content, so there's 3 different camera streams. There's an audio stream that gets edited into what people watch on YouTube and then also on Spotify. And then it goes to another team and they cut down some of the short form stuff. Some of that short form goes back onto Instagram and some of it goes onto YouTube. But behind the scenes, I guess there are 3 cameras that are picking up content and there is data for Africa and processes required in order to bring that to life. But now we've got cameras set up so that the process is the same. We sit down and record, but we've got to hit record on all of them, hope they're actually working. There's fucking backup things going on.
We have no idea what we're doing.
No. There are cords everywhere. These are interchangeable, which is pretty hot. These being the things on the wall for those just listening to the audio. But, mate, it's exciting. It's for me, it's progress, it's growth.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. It's pretty cool. Like, it's kind of a cool feeling to be in your own room where you, there's no booking or anything.
Yeah. Yeah, and we can probably get into some of the reasons for the change in coming podcasts, but let's get it working first and make sure that, it does work. But it's been pretty cool to get some clients as well of Next Advisory to help pull this together because for me, doing something like this is my worst nightmare.
Yeah, to be fair, I wouldn't have a clue where to start with electricity and wires, eh?
There's tens of thousands of dollars worth of equipment. And that's what it takes in this day and age, apparently.
Special lighting, special poles. Like, every camera has a little level on it, which the only reason I know that is from building. Like, you see there's like a little site level so you can see if the camera's set up correctly.
People have no idea that the content that they consume, like the time and effort that goes into it. I think at that top 10% level.
And fun fact, these mics, these are the same basic mic that Michael Jackson made famous in Thriller when he recorded it all the way back then, and it's still the most sold microphone of all time.
Wow. I've actually noticed now with the old reticular activator system, since you told me about that, I keep seeing these everywhere.
Yeah.
And now everybody's putting those little boxes on the bottom of them.
Yeah.
Do we definitely hit record? Okay.
Well, if you're listening and this has made it to you, we got it right.
Yeah. Nice. Anyway, mate, big news out there in the big wide world of the land of the long white housing market. 3.75 the OCR as of last week. Came down from 4.25.
Yeah, we got the 50 basis point cut, which was, I think it was pretty much widely expected. I think when we had, the last one was at the end of November, and then sort of in that first week or two of December, we got that bad GDP data, which was lower than forecast. And even myself, I was like, oh, that might be it's a long wait until we get to this most recent cut. We might see a 75, but I think, he just telegraphed it so much that it was going to be a 50. Couldn't really do anything different. The most interesting, as always, was in the notes and the monetary policy and what was talked about afterwards, eh?
Yeah, what'd you spot in there?
The biggest one, which I've seen some people bring up already online, was the change in forecast, basically. So they're still calling an OCR of 3 the neutral rate, but they're saying that they're getting back to that, around middle of this year. And previously, go back a year and it was, 2026 or late 26, and it's gone more and more forward. That forecast has just been accelerated, which, it kind of got telegraphed in a way that the remaining cuts of the OCR will probably be 3 more at the next 3 meetings of 0.25. I reckon they're going lower, eh?
Well, just 2 things then. What's a neutral rate? So is the neutral rate that's the rate that it should get to? Inflation should be between that target band of 1 to 3. The economy should be okay-ish. Everyone just get out there and shut up and get on with it.
Yeah, it's sort of hard to explain the neutral rate, to be honest. Basically it's like inflation's under control, price stability, is under control effectively, and the economy isn't in the toilet.
Yeah.
And if you have the rate go under the neutral rate, that is a stimulatory rate, so it's probably encouraging people more and more to borrow a bit more quickly. And if it's over, it's restrictive. That's the sort of terminology they use.
Oh, yeah.
So technically at 3.75, even though it's come down a lot, it's still in restrictive territory according to the forecasts and the bank, So, yeah, I don't know. I go out to the economy and look outside and I feel like she needs some stimmy.
Yeah.
She needs a little bit lower than neutral, and whether we see that or not, it's hard to say. I sort of said at the end of last year, start of this year, we'll get a 2.5 later on this year, but we'll see.
So if we have a 3% OCR by the end of 2025, what sort of rate are people probably roughly going to be paying for their debt?
Yeah.
I know it's not just related to the OCR.
Yeah. I don't see any reason why there wouldn't be like a low to mid 4% rate. Like we've seen a few banks, retail banks in New Zealand come out with 4.99 as an interest rate now for mortgages, and some banks are doing that on the 2-year, some on the 3-year. These are definitely like special rates under the current conditions. And if we do have an OCR of 3, it'd be very hard for me not to believe there would be like some bank doing a special at the time of, a short-term rate, maybe, 4.19 or something like that. If we get an OCR of 2.5 later on in the year, I don't want to fire everyone up, eh? I reckon a bank, like in a competitive market, when everything's starting to fire again, which I think what will happen, someone will do a 3.99. And it might be for a limited time, it might be for 2 weeks, it might be for a month or whatever. But I'd say it would be available for a short period, yeah.
So what are you seeing across Guardian Smith at the moment in terms of clients getting in touch?
You're going to hate this, eh?
Here he comes.
The end of January was like a light switch got turned on.
Really?
Yeah.
In what regard? Like people going out there and buying
just
properties?
The inquiry went through the roof.
Yeah.
How
much debt can I have?
Yeah, well, something interesting is occurring there too. Like a lot of people that couldn't get what they want to borrow out of us or out of the banks via us last year, now because the interest rates have come down, the bank's test rates have come down a bit too. So, like we were playing around with 8.5% test rates in the bank calculators. Now they're, they all have different ways of working it out, but around 7.
Yeah.
Which is, that could be the difference between someone last year borrowing 650 and this year borrowing 750.
Really?
Yeah, depending on the person's scenario and stuff. But
so the test rate is basically designed to see if the interest rate got that high, could you actually afford to? So it's got a little buffer.
It's kind of like their risk test. Yeah. So, I mean, I also think that.
What about the debt to income calculations? Are we touching those yet? No, not even close.
In certain scenarios, but it's also the banks have a certain capacity that they can allow to run over as well.
Oh.
So at the moment, obviously, because it's such a tiny amount, sometimes the bank are sending it up to their credit team and being like, yeah, we'll take this one on. They look like, good clients and they've got good jobs and good futures and all of that character stuff. So I do think later on in the year, we'll be having quite a lot hit that threshold, and it'll be interesting to see when it kicks in. And it'll be interesting to see what my job's like then.
Yeah. So at the moment, you're seeing people come back to the market and say, hey, we're looking at buying again. We want to know how much we can borrow. Yeah. And then they're straight off to open homes.
Yeah. And it's really noticeable that it's in the nicer type suburbs and stuff is where the transactions seem to be occurring. It's not in like the, is this offensive? Out in the WAPs,
WAPs.
In the
WAPs. Like Dannyburg or Harwood or something.
Actually, the regions go mean.
Yeah.
Just because everything is affordable.
Yeah.
But in Auckland specifically, like I see a lot of transaction volume in areas where the prices aren't like 800 to $1 million. It's more like the 1.5 to 2 million price range that seems to be firing up. And it kind of makes sense if you think about the economy. Like those people have to be earning more to borrow that much and stuff like that. They have to be earning more to have saved the deposit. So they're probably in like a more important role. So they probably don't have any job security, issues anymore. Like that is probably behind us. And with interest rates coming down, they know that like the loan is getting more affordable, plus they know that they've probably been through the restructure at work or whatever, they're smooth sailing.
Yeah.
And
They're
those
confident.
those are the people that forge the bottom of a market, eh?
Yeah.
Um,
Because they're still willing to buy. They're bidding and buying. Let's go.
Yeah, well, it comes down to like, I think I've seen a couple of articles on oldinterest.co.nz, shout out to them, about like how it's the the best time to buy for someone.
Yeah.
And I can't remember the calculations, but it was basically like income to debt ratio plus affordability in terms of what the loan's costing. And they put a few things together and basically work out where it is. And it's quite a good time to do it, right? Really, yeah, if you're a genius and if you had access to all of the future data that was going to come out, you would probably want to buy when interest rates are quite high and knowing that they're going to fall because like house prices get suppressed by that, you know? So people are starting to move in as that interest rate trend continues.
What are people who have debt at the moment, so that aren't looking to buy, they are looking to refix? Because I saw that I think around 55% of mortgages are ready to refix in this first half of the year. And
that's going to feel great for the New Zealand economy.
There's your stimmy, mate.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's a huge one. All the people that follow me on Instagram and on here, of course, they're all keeping their repayments the same.
Nice, they're clearing their debt faster.
Clearing that debt, baby. But that won't happen. Like the majority will definitely take the lower repayment, but it means more money back in the spending and businesses and all of that kind of stuff. So there is a huge amount of, there has never been so much focus from clients around OCR meetings.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy, yeah.
Yeah, like our inquiry would spike leading into the OCR announcements, and people, or we'd reach out and they're saying we're floating until after and trying to sort of game the system a bit. Lots of 6-month fixing at the end of last year.
So that they can watch these next OCR announcements.
Yeah, like taking the 6 month at the end of last year was the most punishing rate. But everyone was like, I'll take 6 months of pain for the big gain on the other side, even though you don't know. But I guess the commentary around it was so, everyone was so confident with that decision that it's just ended up with like half of the existing mortgages in New Zealand coming up for refix this year.
Yeah. Yeah, because the next announcement, just having a look here, is the 9th of April. And
it's not even that far.
No. Yeah, and then I think there's one in May as well.
Every 6 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then, by the end of June, that's a lot of, I think, what's the total mortgage book in the country? Is like 370 billion or something?
Yeah.
So half of that rolling onto a rate. So they're probably going to be rolling onto a rate maybe a whole percentage point in some instances.
Yeah, is that $380 million back in the back pockets of Kiwis?
Sheesh.
A lot of money, going back into the economy.
Yeah.
And then if you do, imagine if that all happened again and there's another 380 million. We're closing in on a billion worth of stimulus if that happens, right?
Wait, hang on. Is it 380 or is it 3.8 billion?
No, 380 billion.
Yeah, of the total debt book. Yeah. But they're dropping it by 1%.
In terms of the
what's then saved and then people are spending back
price,
in. It's a shit ton of cash anyway.
It's a lot, yeah.
Yeah, far out. And so are you seeing already, like across the Guardian Smith clients, are you seeing people roll onto those cheaper rates?
Yeah, there are a whole lot of people that were probably due for refixing in January and February that stayed on floating to wait for the OCR. Because there was so much sort of confidence by the banks and the people that manage their interest rate pricing teams and stuff, a few banks started pricing it in, and floating rates always wait. But basically, then there was a couple of specials floating around that people started taking, but a lot of people coming off like high 6s or early 7s, and then ending up on, at the moment, there's 4.99. Or, if you're going from 6.5 down to like 5.29 or whatever the rate is, it is a big difference.
Yeah.
Like you can even take advantage by, even if you don't want to leave the repayment the same because you want some easing in your life, just meeting it halfway or something, and then your debt will reduce faster and you've got cash in your back pocket, which is, it's been 3 years now of going the other way, of being taken off you. So, Yeah, it's nice.
Getting in the KiwiSaver fund that suits you and your situation is key to making sure you're maximizing your investment. Generate are an award-winning KiwiSaver provider with a track record of long-term performance, and they can help you do exactly this. Their advisors can meet with you to talk about all your options when it comes to KiwiSaver to help you decide what's best for you. Too many people never get KiwiSaver advice, but not you. Go to generatekiwisaver.co.nz/change to book a no-obligation chat with a Generate advisor. A copy of the product disclosure statement is available at generatekiwisaver.co.nz. The issuer of the scheme is Generate Investment Management Limited, and of course, past performance does not guarantee future returns.
So, silly question for those of us who don't have any debt, mate, and aren't propping up the Ponzi. If we go to refix, right, and our loan is a 30-year loan, but now we have a cheaper rate, each time we refix, are we basically redeciding the loan term and based on the interest rate and therefore our repayment amount? Or
what's the best way to explain this? So like the underlying loan will always have a documented term, like most is 30 years. If you agree on that at the start, then it's sort of like the main contract.
Yeah.
Then you kind of take out, I'll try and keep this in layman's terms, then you kind of take out like a second agreement on top, like a layer 2 contract, which is your fixed rate or your loan structure. And then let's just say it was all on the 6 month, that top one. When it comes up for renewal and it expires, the underlying 30-year doesn't change. Even if you keep the repayment the same, your indicative loan term, as in if you continue to keep paying that rate, drops down. And you can pay off your loan early if you keep doing that, but it doesn't change the agreement as such.
And that's, I'd imagine, where people probably pay their loan down faster, so they're on track to have cleared it in, let's say, 20 years, but then halfway through, put it on the mortgage, baby. It's the old
we got equity, man. That's how we keep this place going.
Yeah. Now, I do want a Mazda 6 or whatever, and then that you're then playing with the second tier of the contract?
Well, it's just
slowing down your payments.
Yeah. You're slowing everything back down, and it depends on what equity you've got to use. And
yeah. Wow, far out. We're going to see a bit more of it, I'd imagine. As well, we have to see house prices increase, and it doesn't look likely from where I'm.
It doesn't, eh?
Well, but things can turn pretty quickly. Like, imagine the confidence in the economy come September 2025. Like when people feel like they've got hundreds more in their bank account.
Yeah,
the debt, holders.
Like that. Saying yes to, coffee with the girls again's back on the cards. Like everything's feeling nicer because you're catching up with people. A dinner now and then out.
Yeah,
because it's all affordable. Like these little tiny things have gigantic compounding effects in terms of how you feel.
Yeah,
and it's the opposite of what happened the last couple of years, where it felt like someone was stealing from you, which isn't a nice feeling. And
if people are willing to, have gotten used to a 5, 6, or a 7% interest rate, if they're suddenly getting a 4 point or even a low 5, okay, maybe we can make sense of borrowing this amount of money and paying that, right?
That's exactly what happens. Yeah. Instead of being like, I'm going to keep my payments the same and chunk down this debt, everyone just goes, bang it on the minimum. Oh, there's a bit of equity there. Let's go get the car.
Yeah. Holiday next.
Yeah.
Always wanted a boat.
Reno is probably the most common thing.
Reno.
Yeah.
Well,
we've been living in the shithole that we bought in like 2019 for 5 years now. We need a pool or whatever the thing is,
I've heard some of those convos, and interesting. You'll enjoy this. Speaking to a client in January, and they are in the Reno space.
Yep.
And they've had a number of people bring out their quote from a year ago and say, "Hey, we want to do this now." Like at the time, it was here, gone. Like client can't get a hold of them. Done. They're like, "Oh, hey, can we do it now?" And we have to readjust the pricing to make sure that's accurate. But there's the behaviour changes there.
Yeah, that's the start of it, right? Like, I've been going to a few open homes myself, mate.
Okay.
Yeah. Just look for a potential house for me. And because I'm really a bit fussy and stuff like that, I've been looking in nice areas. And I can tell you that there are people at those open homes, eh?
Really?
And a year ago, it was pretty dry.
Yeah.
And like in certain areas, the bottom of the housing market is in. Unless we have another black swan or a war or whatever, like that is, I can go there and just by looking around at the cars parked on the road outside the houses, and then you walk in and you see the shoes lined up at the door, those areas the bottom is in.
Yeah.
There might be some more struggle and pain and stuff, but there's enough of a buyer pool now in those nicer areas to soak it up.
In the nicer areas,
You only need for someone selling their house, the bottom of the market comes in when there is more than one buyer. If there's one person going to open home, one person going to the auction, one person making an offer, you have zero leverage against that person, really, unless your leverage is you don't need to sell.
Yeah.
But if you want to, then, shoes on the wrong foot, really. But as soon as there's two people doing that, then you've got leverage because you're like, well, if this person doesn't want it, I can talk to this other person. And that's the game of real estate agents.
We're going back to Sir Adrian Orr's big announcement.
Mm-hmm.
We then end up at 3.75 with the official cash rate. We look like we're going to trickle down to 3. We all know that these things don't always go to plan, but I think the question was asked, how come we can't just go to 3 now? And I think we've had similar conversations about why can't we just get there on the way up and send it. But before we just get there, just a reminder, I think we sat at 5.5%, the official cash rate, for a 12-month period, maybe even a little bit longer. But from mid-2023 to mid-2024, it was 5.5%.
Brutal, eh?
Yeah. It almost feels like that went quite quickly. It definitely won't for the mortgage holders out there.
Nah.
But there's been so much confidence that it's going to decrease, and I think that probably is why so many people were fixing shorter term, right?
Yeah, a lot of the confidence of it decreasing was the massive backflip that happened by the RBNZ in the forecast last year. Like they say it wasn't a backflip, but they were basically telling us that September rates were staying at 5.5, the OCR, until September 2025. 6.
Oh,
25.
Yeah, this year.
Sorry,
Yep.
20. And then that was like the February meeting, and then the May meeting, it was like we're cutting or wherever it was. So it really just like backflipped, and then it was like, what that does is it tells the market, it's like, it's kind of like admitting you're wrong, especially after you've been saying one thing for so long. It's like boy who cried wolf type thing. So that's where that came from. And then it's only continued, right? It started fast. It has slowed now, though. Like, it sounds like the next one will be 0.25.
Yeah.
So they are trying to target that 3%. What was the other part of your question?
Well, I was getting to the point that the reason it can't just go to 3 is that there was commentary that, hang on, the onshore domestic part of inflation is still sticky, and we need to get that under control. And if we do, then we can get down towards that 3% or that neutral rate.
Yeah, I reckon it's a bit of a yarn, eh?
Yeah, well, it's interesting.
Like
how
councils aren't going to just drop rates on people because of like what the OCR is. They're so cooked themselves that they don't even know what the OCR is. They're muppets.
Yeah, and interestingly, the next CPI release isn't till the 17th of April. And I'm pretty sure that RBNZ announcement is the 9th of April.
Yeah, it always happens just before, eh?
Yeah. But remember, going back a few years, it was like, inflation's a global thing and it's transitory. And now it's like, no, we can't drop the OCR because it's the onshore. Huh? What do you mean onshore inflation? What the fuck? You told me that it was...
I think it's all a bit of like, I mean, I was driving down the road in Christchurch one day at the end of last year and had the radio on, which I never get to listen to the radio, just because I was in a rental car, and it was the News Talk ZB guy and Adrian Orr, and the News Talk ZB guy was saying, like, the councils are continuing to push rates up, which flows on into, the domestic inflation figures that you're talking about, and insurance and stuff like that. And Adrian Orr said, "Go call your counsellors." I was like, "Oh my god!"
Oh yeah, Thanks for calling in. We'll just decrease your rates. Cheers.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
So I mean, it is what it is, man. I think, to be honest, more than that, it's probably they say that, and it's more about the currency. Even though they say they don't worry too much about the currency, but if they crash the New Zealand dollar, it's not that great for anyone trying to export stuff. I mean, farmers and stuff might enjoy it, but you can't let it go too far. Even, there's no point if you can't. If the dollar you earn has got no purchasing power for anything that we import, there's no point earning it, even if you are an exporter, right?
Yeah.
So, it has to have some sort of stability in that, but I think they probably just mask it a bit because of that.
Well, there'll be some people who won't like the OCR going down and interest rates decreasing, and those are the part of the population that are sitting on term deposits. And it's not just individuals who have term deposits. You've got to think there are charities, there are clubs and organisations, and
my club has got like $100,000 in their thing, and it's all in term deposit. Yeah.
Is this a car club or something? Is
Yeah,
this like
sports car club in New Zealand. Yeah.
Oh, you've been serious?
Yeah.
I was about to make a gag that it was
Yeah,
like
I'm
some
going to the
sort of
AGM next week, mate.
Drivers License Association of New Zealand or something. Yeah, and you know, most of those people would go, right, term deposit, that's safer. So that's then less income for some of those clubs. And then if inflation is eroding into that original capital as well.
It's pretty brutal. Like, so mortgage rates from, you know, the peak, quote, have dropped more than the OCR. And so have term deposit rates, you know, like they're getting smashed.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty quick turnaround. If you think about it, it was probably, what are we? We're February now. So it's probably like 9 months ago was like peak bank interest rates and peak term deposit rates. I think actually term deposits started bleeding a little bit earlier. But yeah, so in 9 months, you may have lost 40% of the interest on your term deposit earnings.
Yeah, well,
that's a big cut to your income if that was your income.
100%, mate. I was about to say, you know, you could get sixes, and just looking at a 12-month rate at the moment, at the time of recording this, is around 4.2, and probably going to continue to keep coming back. So we're going to be looking at fours. Yeah, I wonder about the behavioural change for term deposit users from 6 to 4, remembering that you're losing a percentage to tax as well. Now it's a decent-ish, if you've got enough coin, it's a decent-ish top-up of your income.
It's a big swing, yeah.
Yeah, to then lose 35% of that. And you have to remember that this interest rate increasing cycle, when did we kick off? Maybe like late 2020 or early 2021?
November 2021 was the
2021
big meeting where he said,
we're on.
We're on.
So like there are basically 2, 3, 4, there's 3 years and like 3.5, maybe, like let's just say 4 years, that people are then going to go, oh, well, I was getting 6%, now I'm going to get a 4 or a 3. And I know a lot of people don't agree with this. My argument is that there'll be a lot of people that will go, I've lost 4 years there. You know what? I'm not going to put as much on a term deposit anymore. I'm either going to chase a higher return elsewhere, or, you know what? Like I'm actually at that stage of my life where I have to spend some of this down. What's the point of tying it all up in a term deposit? Or, because I think
that's kind of the point.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And I think that when I talked about this on LinkedIn the other day, and there was a few comments from people who aren't older, and they're like, nah, they'll just invest it into property and stuff. And it's like, if you're fucking 65 to 95, are you, and you're in the years of like, okay, now we're into decumulation. Most people only think about accumulation. Are they out there being like, yeah, let's chase like the best possible return? Or are they like, you know what? We should probably spend some of this. And that will mean more money going back into the economy as well.
Probably gift as the kids for house deposit.
Bingo, yeah. Or clearing down some of their debt, whatever, right? But it'll be fascinating to see some of that money come out of term deposits and how much of it actually gets refixed. And when they just roll on and go, oh, well, cheaper rate is what it is. Or they go, I'm not putting the whole lot back in there.
Because through this period, term deposits were like record highs, eh?
Yeah.
So there's a record amount of money in them.
Yep.
And it's going to be, well, a portion will start getting exited out.
Yeah, and because the thing that, you know, when you have a mortgage and you have to refix your rate, if you don't, you just go into floating, right?
Yep.
But most people are like, oh, I don't want to do that because the pain is too much.
Yep.
So you go, well, I'm going to make sure I sort this and we're going to refix it. When you come off a term deposit, if you don't do that, it just goes back into your bank account. Now, the pain isn't that high. It's very different to not, refixing a mortgage rate. It is, I'll worry about that in next week.
Yeah.
Oh, I got busy next week. Oh, I'll worry about that in a month's time. And before you know it, like a month's gone past. So I think there's a big opportunity for a lot of people to remember that if we think about who has the wealth in the country, it is older people. And they now may be more willing to spend some of their base capital than just their passive returns.
We're going to take it off them, eh?
You've said it very bluntly.
We're coming for you.
But 100%. Like, I mean, I think it's just the simplest way for people to think about how can they make a bit of extra cash. It's like, well, who's got the cash? We know that it's the older generations. And if now they're going to be more likely to spend it, what can you do for them? How can you help them? What problems can you solve? What maintenance can you do around their house? What services can you offer to the demographic of people who have the money?
Yeah, man.
There's a big opportunity coming for people, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And I don't think, like, people aren't going to understand it. It's like, all the shit we've been talking about over the last 5 years, where people 2 years later are like, oh man, it makes heaps of sense now, eh? Yeah, it will fucking make heaps of sense in 2 years' time looking back and be like, oh, weird that Nana like gave us some money to upgrade our car. Oh shit. That, you know, now they got a cleaner and they haven't had one previously. Oh, you know, that they are going to the retirement village, or, oh, they're doing this, that, and everything. Yeah, it is pretty weird, eh? Not for you guys, because you're going to learn. All of this stuff, when an economy changes and interest rates change, behaviors change. And if you can figure out how the behavior changes, you can make cash. Now,
especially if you're at the front end of the curve.
Exactly.
Because then you get to ride that wave, baby.
And it's the same for all of us. And, you know, people will just get fixated on that. No, they won't. They'll just redo their fucking term deposits. Well, someone said to me at the start of the interest rate cycle, like, and the recession, I've been through the last recession in accounting, people just stopped doing like advisory work. I'm like, oh shit. If I believe that, that's basically like our whole part of our business is just wiped out. But I go, well, actually, I need to adapt to the market and figure out what advisory work it wants or what consulting, and then remold the work that we're doing and market to that.
And you did a bit of that, right?
Yeah, 100%. So chopping things down from 12 months to 90 days. Don't worry about, you know, like scaling. Let's talk about getting that first hire.
Yeah.
All these different things to figure out, okay, what do people need in this market, rather than like, oh, no, you can't do advisory work in this time. Yeah. What about some low-level...
You did like more than ever, eh?
Yeah, bro. Yeah. Record turnover, record profits, record taxes paid. Interacting with more people. We're doing workshops at low ticket prices and whatnot. So I've been executing a strategy for when the interest rates start to come back down the other way. Yeah. People would probably look at me from the outside and be like, he's probably just like, they don't realize I'm already playing in that market. Like I'm building the business to play in that market.
Yeah.
Because I have a thesis on how it will play out, and eventually people will get back to like scaling and growing and whatnot, because when the economy was cranking, people get competitive and they want to beat their competitor. They want to hire more than them. They see one doing marketing and they're like, oh, well, I better be doing that too. All of that stopped, and it was like survival, contraction, I just have to get through.
Yeah.
But as confidence comes back into a market, behavior starts to change, so then your messaging has to change as well.
For sure.
So it's not just like go and take the money off of the baby boomers. It's you have to always adapt to the economy that is in front of you and that is coming.
Yeah, I have theories, and market predictions and stuff that I'm not going to tell anyone because that's how we roll pretty much 2 years in advance of like what subset of people buying houses over the next 2 years, when, you know, what we go through and stuff. And like I nailed it during COVID, nailed it post-COVID. And then we're going into a new period now. And I'm pretty sure I've got it right again, which is good, but I'm definitely not telling anyone because every mortgage company will be targeting them.
Yeah. Nice. Good on you, mate. Love it. Anything else in that announcement that you spotted that you thought was of note?
Nah, just really that speeding up of the forecast to 3 and then leaving the door very wide open for more cuts in the future, right? Which is, I mean... Although 5.5 was only 18 months long, it hasn't been that long since it was being cut. You know, like 6 to 9 months ago it was up there. We've already accelerated to 3.75 from there. And now they're leaving the door open at the moment, pretty much only to the downside. Like there's no upside risk at the moment in terms of reading the reports. You know, could be wrong, but...
There's just those paragraphs around like, oh, well, you know, there's always risks from the international side of things and we don't know tariffs and all this sort of shit, right? To just be like, okay,
that offshore inflation risk.
Yeah, we can cover our ass in the next 6 months and say, oh, well, we did tell you back then. Yeah, I went through like a number of the graphs and stuff. I think the thing that a lot of people want to be mindful of too is that we're at pretty high unemployment. We've got a lot of people on some form of welfare and benefits and whatnot.
That data's sad.
Yeah, and if we can't create jobs for those people to employ people, like we've got to, you know, it's not just like business owners all of a sudden get the confidence to go like, I'm hiring 5 people. Like they've got to take them through themselves through that journey, and we're seeing like liquidations and all sorts of shit still going on. There's still a big lag in that space.
There's still a huge amount of like bleeding occurring, right?
Yeah.
And that lag that just drags behind all of this is just painful to be a part of. But if you fast forward to like the end of this year and you think about, you know, interest rates getting lower and lower, there's people getting, you know, including business owners having more money in their back pocket because they're all mortgage holders too.
Yeah, and they're paying for finance on vehicles and things, and their rates may come down depending on.
Yeah. And then there's like the boomers and stuff that aren't getting the returns, so they might throw a bit of cash around, which might go into the businesses. Who knows? Like a bit more spending. And you can see where the recovery happens just because of interest rates, eh?
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean like this cut in the OCR means that everything's fixed tomorrow, but the trend is occurring for it to be healed. Like this is what monetary policy does, eh?
Yeah, and that's the point I was getting to, is that you got to stay on your toes, because if you go and have a look at some of those RBNZ graphs, like they're not predicting unemployment down into 4% until like 2028, you know, and staying down there, and it's like 4% still pretty high compared to where it has been.
Yeah.
So we don't want to be getting too cocky when with whatever we're doing, but in employment and stuff, and getting a little bit complacent of like, interest rates are coming down, things are a bit easier now. You know, you can't, it doesn't matter, I think we said this in an earlier pod, but it doesn't matter if your interest rate's 7%, 6, 5 or 4, if you don't have an income and you can't service it.
Yeah.
Then
100%.
you know,
Yeah.
you don't really need to tune in with the OCR
I always say like the real minimum wage is 0. You know, like they can make the minimum wage whatever you want, but if you can't get a job,
yeah,
and earning like anything, right? So yeah, I mean, economies are fickle things, but that's why everyone does. Even if you don't understand all of the mechanics behind it, that's why everyone does hang on the OCR. It's, you know, in a house price-based economy or an economy that loves housing or just loves debt, really. That's the truth of it, not just housing. But, you know, it is an important factor, a very important factor to how the economy performs. Like if we had an OCR of 7 right now, we would be in a chronic depression.
Yeah.
You know, that's how different the OCR can change the economy. And luckily it's not 7 and it's 3.75 and trending lower. But yeah, it's, you know, I feel like we'll be in good spirits by the end of 2025. Tough ride, but getting better.
Yeah. The piece of the puzzle that I'm going to be really interested to watch play out is how many people move to New Zealand and how many people leave. Like, do we lose heaps of citizens again? And because I think we went from around 130,000 people coming to New Zealand.
This is a whole pod topic on itself, by the way.
Yeah. And we'll do one.
We've done some damage to our image, eh?
Oh, yeah. And we've gone from 130,000 coming to 30, right?
Yeah.
Now, if the economy's not moving fast enough to create jobs and we're not doing big projects and whatnot to bring people in, you know, and people go, okay, unemployment's not moving and we've got more people leaving, then we've got people going, well, I don't really need to come here, then we've still had, because a lot of our GDP growth over the years has been artificial, let's say, right? Let's be honest. We're not really like creating.
It's just fake money.
Bringing people in.
Yeah.
And so, but then if we go to a per capita basis, we've been decreasing for 2 years. And
technically that's a depression.
It's ugly.
Yeah.
So what does 2025 look like on that front? Maybe we need to do a whole pod. We will do a whole pod on that and just, on that topic. And I think people are looking at that further now too.
It's a lot of damage when citizens leave because they don't come back in 3 months, eh? You know, like when people who have lived here, been a part of our education system, worked in the economy, maybe even bought a house and then decided to pack up and go, like that's not a light decision.
No.
So that's a big change, and that doesn't, like, normally those people are going to be away for at least a business cycle of like 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
You know, minimum, and then maybe we don't see some for a decade, and there's always people that never come back. But, you know, that's brutal and tough to make up or to rebuild.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not like an overnight fix.
One thing that's interesting, and this is a little bit contrarian, but, you know, one of the arguments for buying a home versus renting is, you know, like, oh, wait till you have kids and you don't want to be moving and all this shit. Well, fuck, we saw a lot of people leaving New Zealand.
Yeah.
You know, that argument
You
went
always
out the
find a
window.
way to make sure the houses don't matter.
Sorry to the people out there. But it's fascinating when your back's against the wall enough, you'll go, you know what, like, we're moving to Australia and I'm taking my family.
Yeah, it's a grunty decision.
Yeah, like, most people think moving a home is annoying.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be doing that.
Yeah.
And it's enough reason
I'm looking
not
at
to
the
rent.
moment, man, and I've like start looking around my garage. I'm like, fuck, this day coming up is going to be such a dog.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just hate
But
this.
people are like, I'm going to get all my shit and I'm going to start a new life in Australia.
Wild to think about, really.
Yeah, you've got to be really at your wits' end with the country.
Push to the brink in some cases to do that.
Or you must, because most people are driven by frustration and it's not happening right, rather than like there's heaps of opportunity.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's interesting. People really must be getting pushed to the brink to go like, I am going to go. And they can't see the opportunity here.
I think GDP, recession, all of these like metrics, CPI and stuff like that, the one internally that we carry, which it's what pisses me off about economic data, because like there's no one, and you can't really make this one because everyone would be a little bit different, but it's basically your quality of life. That one's like
Another
important.
point.
Yeah. Because like I feel like I should work out what that equation is and make it and then use it and then report on it quarterly.
Chaz will be able to help you.
Chaz?
Yeah, ChatGPT.
Oh, yeah. That's true, yeah. Yeah, that's because if you
don't think your quality of life is getting better, you're more likely to then go, I'm out of here.
Or that it's really good. Yeah, because quality of life doesn't need to be like GDP where it compounds up and stuff like that. Like if you are happy with your quality of life and it doesn't improve to the next year, but your quality of life was good last year and it's good this year, then you don't get forced anywhere. Whereas like every other metric we look at is like a compounding thing, and like GDP is, 1% up on the 1% that was last quarter and the 1%. Like it's always like this game of, let's put more units into the system and it spreads the wealth gap and
yeah. And on that, going back to, when the market's hissing, it's competitive and whatnot, and we see it with clients where it's like, okay, I've got to beat my competitors. But when we do have a slowdown in, your competitors winning or even house prices increasing, I think it sort of resets that you don't feel like it's getting away on you. So then you're not forced into making decisions like, fuck, I do need to like borrow as much as I can and buy that property and things like that. Or like, we better hire that person in case we miss out on the next one. It all slows down a little bit. Oh, we can bide our time.
Yeah.
And it's actually, I think, being probably quite nice for the country to have a period of like, okay, we don't need to just be so worried that everything's getting out of reach.
Yeah, because what happens is like as you earn and save a bit more and house prices don't run away from you, they start to look like the value of paying for a house is just the utility value of what it is, because you can earn and save and outsave the price increase,
and I think
which is a nice place to be.
Yeah, and I think a lot of younger people who have been doing that, they've been investing into the American stock market.
And sending it.
Yeah, and they've been getting, let's just say, like 20% returns over the last couple of years on average. And then house prices haven't been moving.
Or going down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, oh, okay. But if they were investing into New Zealand companies, fuck me, it'd be tough. Like that.
I saw Ryman's doing another $1 billion.
Yeah, to pay off some debt.
Yeah.
We talked about this on a pod like years ago. Imagine raising $1 billion and doing it again.
Yeah.
I'm going to be very interested to see if they can get it. I think they've already got $350 million in the can.
They should probably ring Michael Saylor.
Yeah.
And raise it for something that'll...
And 650, I think they've got to go out to the market and go and get.
It's a lot.
That's going to show us how much money. But you think about it. When's a good time to do a raise? When the boomers are taking their cash out of term deposits. Now you can start to see how
when they do that, do they offer a share at a discounted price?
I think you're getting shares for $3 and they're currently at about 4 something on the market. Probably see a fallback in that share.
Yeah, I was going to say, I wonder if the announcement or closer to the date, if you see the share price close in on the...
Yeah, I think it's in a trading hold at the
sell-off.
moment, but I don't know if there's going to be an arbitrage opportunity there for some. But yeah, fascinating. But the New Zealand companies have just been getting smashed. Like I saw, apparently Spark aren't doing very well. Sky City's revenues come back. They'll be getting smashed by online casinos. I don't think they see that that's the issue, but it'll definitely be part of the issue.
Yeah.
And like Heartland, for instance, as well, one of my favourites, absolutely torched. Let's have a quick look at their share price today. It's
Heartland, you get a chunky divvy, eh?
Yeah, and they're still paying their dividend too. So hey, we really got to try and play the long game.
That's because lending is cash flow positive, baby.
87 cents, my word. Oh, yeah, down another. Is it down another?
Did you say 87?
52-week change, lost 28% of my net worth, mate. Why are you laughing?
Just slow and sure, eh?
Yeah.
But the divvy's like 8 or something, eh?
I don't even know what it is at the moment, but I just reinvest it straight back in.
Yeah.
Yeah, 10%. Yeah.
It's amazing because you think that shareholders would all reinvest it straight back in, but obviously they're not.
No. But yeah, I think it's still going to be a tough year for some of those big New Zealand companies and And like the New Zealand markets have just been, that's why people don't invest into New Zealand companies through this period.
Yeah, we're not risk on at all yet, are we? Like,
Nah.
I mean, I'm staying positive and saying like later on this year we should all feel better, but it's there is light at the end of the tunnel, but it's not like everyone's out there being like, oh man, let's go stock up on Ryman and help, whatever. Heartland's firing and like those days. Man, I remember in 2021 people were like just at coffee shops with their Sharesies app open showing each other. Yeah. Like just sending it.
And just borrowing for vehicles and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, just credit card top-ups on bloody cryptocurrency websites. I remember ANZ sharing a chart and it was so funny because it was credit card transactions to crypto exchanges or whatever. And then it was with the Bitcoin price, and it was so embarrassing for New Zealanders. Sorry, guys. Basically, like, we trailed, and then as it crashed, like, we peaked, and it was so funny.
Bitcoin at the moment, 96-ish thousand US dollars. What are we in NZD? Not that really.
So like
166.
160?
Yeah. Well, I'm off to Vegas, mate, this week.
Don't lose another 0.4 of a Bitcoin, please. It's a bit more valuable this time.
I was about to say, I'm not going to be trading out 0.4 of a Bitcoin to go over there. But, man, the dollar, the US dollar compared to the NZD, shit's going to be an expensive trip.
Yeah, well, you're saying that when we went, it was not bad compared to now, eh?
Yeah. I think it's it's changed like 10 cents.
I think we went over and it was about 95 on the DXY. Now it's like 109.
Yeah, gnarly.
So the US dollar is just crushing all at the moment.
Well, we are in the downward spiral. Well, not spiral, downward slide of interest rates. And I think people are probably like, thank God.
Yeah, I think it's just refreshing at the moment and it's like a bit of weight off the shoulders and it's not full turnaround yet, but you can definitely... The conversations are getting nicer. Yeah, just in general with people I know in business and stuff like that.
Yeah, as always, like my points would be to, do your numbers ahead of refixing, anything like that. Do your numbers ahead of any income changing in your household, whether it's term deposit rates changing, and make sure that you still stay employable and very good at that. Become valuable. Look for ways that you can increase your income. Look for ways that you can build equity so that you can take risks when you want to. I'll tell you a really, really quick story. I've just come from doing a podcast with Stan Henry.
Yep.
And I think there's a very powerful story in there that a lot of people won't think about because we're just not there in New Zealand. So he started The Attention Seeker in 2019, 0 people.
Yep.
He was looking for an idea. He came back to New Zealand, I'm going to do something. And decided, like, he found it, he just got going and basically he's now got 40 staff members.
Our first pods were recorded in his studio.
Bingo.
Yeah.
40 staff members now. He's like, we're just playing, like we're warming up.
Yeah.
I want to have 400, like, can I manage 4,000 people? That's where his mind goes to. Now, I started asking about how come he thinks so big, but anyway, something I heard from a podcast that he did do that I think is really, really eye-opening is that he said that when he started that business, whatever that business was going to be, he had already contributed to superannuation from like 16 to 30 in Australia. And he was like, oh, well, I don't need to worry about my retirement. So I can fucking send it. I can shoot for the stars because the retirement's sorted. That just compounds through to 65. I could fail at this. I'm still going to get to 65 and have a big pot of cash.
Yeah.
Now, people's message is going to be like, oh, see, fucking Australia is way better than New Zealand. No. Start investing early. Start to build runways of cash to de-risk other areas of your life.
Maintaining your purchasing power of the work you put in, basically, which is extremely valuable.
Yeah, so he's able to take a big risk and have a go at what he really wants to be doing. I said the funny thing for you, man, is you're going to probably sell that company for $400 million at some stage.
Yeah.
And your couple of million in the pension fund won't be, you won't be the last of your thoughts. And he's like, yeah, I'll probably just donate it. It's like, wicked. But when we take ourselves out of having heaps of financial stress and we're not, desperate, then we can take some different risks. So again, just because your interest rate is decreasing, think about the biggest cost that you have in New Zealand, and it's housing. Can you decrease that? And you might go, oh, but we don't want to, and fucking it's just annoying and whatever. Yep, okay, but maybe you do that. Part of his journey was, okay, I'm not going to pay any rent for 2 years. I'm going to go live with my family.
Yep.
So it's the same thing. Like all the same themes are coming through there. But if you can decrease what you're spending on your rent or your mortgage and find cheaper ways to do it, you build up your gap faster than other Kiwi people. And at some stage, it's going to allow you to take a risk on something that comes up in your life and you go, right, now is my time.
Yeah, man. It's so hard to like quantify and explain how opportunity comes up when you truly are ready, but it happens.
Yeah.
And you don't know when it's going to come, and you don't know when something's going to be put on your desk. But it just doesn't get on your desk, or you don't even recognize it as an opportunity because it's so far from being achievable to take. And when you don't have debt and maybe you've got some ammo stacked and stuff like that, and then something comes along and you can jump on it, you can make 10 years happen in one.
Even this studio, mate, like I have been putting cash aside, and we've talked on earlier pods around like stacking cash and just, I think it's actually, you said it really well one time. You're like, I don't know what the opportunity is, but I'll know it when I see it, and I'll know that I'll have the cash there to do it. And I know that you've deployed your cash into what you know your opportunity now is. and we can talk more about that in 2025. But, years ago, this would be, okay, to spend this much on this much gear would be like, okay, now I'm looking at some form of finance option to pay it down over time. Now I can't be fucked doing the finance application to do that, and I'm not going to pay them 12%. I'm going to take money that's currently invested at 6% roughly, and I'm losing 40% to tax anyway, and bang, transferred, go buy all the shit, let's get rolling with it. And it allows you to operate at speed. And there'll be other people that'll be like, oh yeah, but you could have fucking done that. You could have still invested over there.
This is exactly what happened with my car. I went to the dealership and talked to a guy to finance it because it was, it made sense for me to do that as opposed to spend a large chunk of cash. Like, it did make business sense. And when I started looking at like the 17-page application and then thinking about like sending it off to the people and them asking for like my pay slips or my financials or whatever, I was just like, oh bro, I'll just do the transfer here and now and just take the keys, eh? Like,
I want to leave.
Yeah, like I'm out of here. And maybe the tax advantage or something it was the wrong way to go, but you're right. The speed you can operate at is a massive advantage, and you move on to the next thing that is a productive thing to do, and you can generate more revenue and cash out of that anyway.
Funny, man. The other day I put up something about how many cars are financed in New Zealand.
80.
Yeah, I reckon that's AA's data. Shout out to them. I reckon they've got that wrong, because quite a few people who work in that industry, and you probably know some of them, and maybe you could do a bit more digging, but they were like, nah, there's no way that we're financing 8 out of 10 cars that we sell.
Nah, so it was 80% of brand new vehicles.
Ah, I see. And so I think the
data.
overall is like 40 to 50 of all vehicles.
Yeah.
But funny, someone sends me this video, and it's like the classic, someone's made a video on social media. No, rich people, they're financing their cars, because what they do, instead of buying the car outright, so you're an idiot, mate. You're a rich guy. You should have known. You take your money and you invest it at 14%.
Oh yeah, these videos.
And it's worth like 46 squillion at the end of it.
Yeah.
And then basically, you've then borrowed the money and you pay down your car, etc. And I said to the person, I was like, hey, technically, like, that video is right. And you can do that. But I fucking promise you, I promise you, that is not what New Zealand people are doing. They're like, oh, maybe that's why so many people are borrowing for these cars, because that's what they're doing. I'm like, okay. People are not, people are still like, is investing a good idea? They're not saying, hey, I'm at the stage where I'm going to borrow for this vehicle.
Arbitrage the shit out of all the debt that I take out and invest it. Like, this is not what's happening now.
Yeah, not here.
Everyone's just looking at the $320 a week payment and going, I can afford that.
Yeah, easy. What's that, man? What's the interest rate? Don't know.
Balloon payment? Pfft, who cares?
Yeah, what does that mean? Yeah, I don't have any balloons. Yeah, the Zuru balloons. Oh, geez. Anyway, we'll talk about that at some stage too. Anyway, mate, that's me. That's hopefully we've tested the studio well. Hopefully the audio.
I'm just really hoping that this is recorded.
Yeah.
What does it say in terms of time?
It's one of my biggest fears is like recording good pods and then finding out that they didn't really work.
Yeah.
Oh, I got a missed phone call like 33 minutes ago. So
we've done a good half hour at least then.
Easy. Righto. Like, subscribe, share, all of that sort of good stuff.
Can you actually just go and subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube? It's really helpful. And like it because the algorithm likes it, and we'll put it into more people so they can see it too.
Yeah, even leave a comment. Love reading through what people are thinking out there and seeing what people have got going on. Love seeing the success stories come through as well. So if you're doing well,
amazing.
Yeah, and you've got some changes that you've been making, I love to hear about them. See you next time.